I want to say that God develops leaders over a lifetime.
Yep.
And I have experienced the presence of God in my life as an early young child because I had parents that were faithful to love Jesus and involved in the church, and it was a part of our regular family routine. One of my best memories of my mom and dad was that my mom was playing the piano back in the day, the old hymns. And so our house was full of music and joy and worship. And my dad and mom would harmonize at the piano singing the old hymns.
Oh, come on.
And that's the heritage, part of the heritage that was gifted to me. And unfortunately, after 16 years of marriage, my mom and dad could not or decided not to hold the marriage together. And so our family broke up in divorce. I was about 10 at the time, and it was pretty serious for me as a 10-year-old. I can remember being in third grade when the teacher asked, "How many of you have divorced parents?" It was me and 2 other students in a class of about 25.
Wow. Where would that be different today, bro?
It would be. But I felt at odd. I didn't fit like all the other students, okay? And so I tell you that because each of my parents had a rebound marriage. Within 1 year, they had married someone else. That marriage for both of them ended in divorce. And in a couple more years, each of them remarried someone else for the third marriage and later divorced. So the family of origin that was a part of my early context was 3 marriages, 3 divorces. And I think another truth in leadership is that what you experience is what gets replicated. So I have a brother who's 2 years older than me, and he followed that same marital divorce pattern.
Wow.
And had married 3 times and divorced 3 times before he was 40 years of age. And so you guys will get a sense when I talk about my relationship with Becky when I was in my early 20s. We met in seminary, fell in love. She loves God. She's an intercessor. In fact, I'm happy to say what was most attractive to me, besides the fact that she was gorgeous and smart and loved God, was her prayer life. There was a way that she spoke with God. And a couple times I was involved in that because I was doing a ministry on the weekends in a prison, and I'd ask Becky to pray for me. So when I heard her pray, I thought, I want to be around more of that. I want to be around her. And so we grew in love, and a long story short, ended up marrying and had 3 children, boom, boom, boom. But later, fast forward, I'm at a retreat and someone is helping me look at my life story. And we're doing it with a method of taking significant people, events, and circumstances and putting them on cards and putting them on a cabin wall. So my whole life up to that point was a series of Post-it notes on the wall. And the person who was facilitating or kind of coaching me through this, after everything was on the wall, sat back, looked at that and said, "Your family dysfunction was broken with your marriage to Becky."
Wow.
I cried for 10 minutes with the reality that my boys have the potential of growing up in a wonderfully different culture, family system, environment. It wasn't perfect, and nobody's perfect because we are human. But my boys had the opportunity to grow up in a very different context, very different culture, very different family system. And I'm so grateful that God was pursuing me and bringing Becky and giving me a whole different opportunity to experience family. So when you guys hear about my upbringing, my family of origin, some of the dysfunction and stuff, how does that resonate? What questions do you have? How does that land with you guys, knowing me now?
Well, I will jump in and say, what a powerful testimony. I mean, I just think about myself saying, married to the same woman for 40 years,
Yeah.
and hearing you tell your story, your family of origin.
Yeah.
And I am curious about what God did in you
Yeah.
that caused you to walk a different path and break that curse.
Well, that's such a good question, John. What comes to my mind immediately is, so Becky and I fall in love, get married, and we're aware that ministry can take a toll on families.
Yeah.
And so before we ever had children, we had heard stories of literally famous Baptist pastors whose children had been interviewed about the relationship they had with their father, and it wasn't positive.
Yeah.
And so Becky and I remember we are driving from seminary in Fort Worth, Texas, back to her home in Birmingham, and we're having a significant conversation about the future of our family, kids, and how we will try to navigate the ministry and family pressures and dynamics and challenges. And I remember us concluding that we would not allow the church to rob us of the significance of being engaged parents. And that's significant for me, guys, because my dad was an absentee father. And so in my heart, I vowed, I'm not going to do everything perfectly. And I didn't. And the challenge is kids come to us without any scripts about how to be parents, right? Yeah. But the thing that was anchored in me is I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be disengaged. And so I loved being a dad. I loved being engaged. I asked my adult kids once, so when you look back, really what rating would you give me and Mom? And my middle son Carter said, we were never, your love for us was never in question. And I thought, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of stuff, a few things I do differently. So one of those things was, how do I love my kids and my wife with few regrets? I mean, it was a present, obvious consideration thought. So I appreciate you asking.
I just want to say, I mean, we met about 8 years ago. You met me with 3 boys at the time.
Yeah.
I had 3 boys. And I still have 3 boys. I just added.
You kept them.
I kept those 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So far.
We like it.
Yeah.
But your investment in me and that value has so transferred, and you've been so overflowing with that important truth that I don't know what my parenting would look like hadn't you invested in that way.
Thank you. So that's a little bit of part one of my story, was the marriage to Becky and how it completely changed the script and my future and my destiny, really.